one of the questions that has been surrounding, Star Wars ever since the new film started with the launch of The Force Awakens, which I love, by the way, has been the question of Rey. Who is Rey? Everybody from the ideas of Rey is a clone of Palpatine. Rey is Obi-Wan's granddaughter. Rey is Luke's daughter. Rey is Dark Helmet's brother's sister's cousin's former roommate, which of course makes her nothing. A lot of people have had a lot of different theories. Now, I'll tell you straight up here. My position on Rey has been since the first time I saw The Force Awakens, and you guys who've watched me for a long time, you know this is the case. After viewing The Force Awakens for the first time, I came out of the movie saying she's not related to anybody. I believe the movie made it extremely clear that she is not related to anybody. That's the key. And my whole point was always, look at the history of the Jedi. The history of the Jedi going back thousands of years has never been about lineage until Skywalker himself came along, but it's never been about lineage. It's been about a child is born who is force sensitive, the Jedi identify them, take them in for training, blah, blah, blah. That's how it has always been, and that is what I've always said. Anyway, then we saw episode 8. Rian Johnson makes it clear that her parents are nobody. Some people complain that was Rian Johnson retconning what JJ intended to do, but JJ always intended for her parents to be nobody. Daisy Ridley herself confirmed this when she said in an interview, what they did with Rey and that with her parentage was what I was told from day one of shooting Star Wars movies is what they were going to do. So there's that. However, that has not stopped a lot of people from wanting to speculate about could they go in a different direction? Could they have her connected to somebody? Well, apparently, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is going to address the question of who is Rey. One of the writers of the film, Chris Terrio, in Empire, he said the following: who is Rey? Which is a question that people not only wonder about quite literally, but wonder about in the spiritual sense. How can Rey become the spiritual heir to the Jedi? We keep coming back to who is Rey? And how can we give the most satisfying answer to that, not only factually, because obviously people are interested in whether there's more to be learned of Rey's story, but more importantly, who is she as a character? How will she find the courage and will and inner strength and power to carry on what she has inherited? And that, of course, comes from the writer of the new film, Chris Terrio. An Academy Award-winning writer, by the way, just so we all know, as a matter of fact. An award-winning writer. All right. So, Rob, I think there's a couple ways of looking at this. I think I know which way you look at it. I think I know which way a bunch of people look at it, but let me tell you the way I look at it. I think Chris Terrio in this statement has made it pretty clear. People who are looking for a she's Luke's daughter revelation ain't going to get it, because in that statement he kept emphasizing, no, the important thing is who is she spiritually? Not about her lineage and all that kind of stuff. And I think there are still going to be people, even though I contend that from The Force Awakens on, they made it, at least to me, clear that she's not of a lineage. She doesn't need to be of a lineage. For somebody to have worth in a movie, they don't have to be the daughter of a king or anything like that. And I believe, I read this statement, and I don't think it changes anything. But, I mean, there is some of the way that he's worded it, that if somebody wanted to believe that they're going to reveal that Rey is actually related to somebody else in more of a tangible way, I think there's some wording in there that I wouldn't call you crazy for looking into it, but I don't know. That's how I read the statement anyway, Rob. You've seen the statement. You're familiar with Chris Terrio's work. What do you think he's meaning by this? I just keep thinking that Palpatine should show up and say, "A girl is no one." Maybe not. Perhaps not. That wasn't very good, Palpatine. Sorry. If Benioff and Weiss were doing this one, maybe that would have been a thing, right? I think it gives me hope reading this statement, because Chris Terrio is saying that, look, her lineage isn't as important as who she is as an individual. And if they're going to explore her beliefs or where she came from in terms of the universe as a whole, or the Force as an entity, the living force, I'm all for that. That's the kind of thinking that I want from this trilogy. And as I've said, look, I've been hugely critical of J.J. Abrams and The Force Awakens, and I've said on the show, I want this movie to be great. And when I hear the writer talking this way, well, it gives me a new hope. I see what you did there. Chris, you're hearing these phrases and these words and so when you look at what he said specifically, what do you take away from that? What do you think it is we're going to see in The Rise of Skywalker as it pertains to the personage of Rey?
I mean, I feel like this statement kind of squashes our clone theory and the rise of Skywalker's clones popping up everywhere, and that makes me sad. I really did want a Terry McGinnis sort of situation here of her having some Skywalker DNA. But that being said, I do think it's interesting to focus on who she is as a person, what she has to deal with now in this Jedi society that sounds like it's going to be restructured, right? We've had Last Jedi, we're doing Rise of the Skywalker, we're figuring out what Jedis are going to be at this point now, especially at the end with that little kid moving that little broom. Oh my gosh, are there more Jedi? What? It's crazy. I think the thing that a lot of people are kind of sinking their claws into is that last little sentence with inherited. I think people are viewing that in a very literal sense from what I've seen online of people really still clinging to that and hoping that she still is literally inheriting something, that she is destined by lineage to get something. And I don't see it that way. I think her parents are nobodies like everyone has said.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's where but I'm still open to the idea of the clone theory.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, number one, it's pretty consistent with the Star Wars universe. Cloning has been a part of the universe. It cherry picks out at least some thematic things out of the expanded universe Star Wars Legends stuff that is no longer canon, but, they've said the writers are free to cherry pick that stuff out. Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. I just always hated the idea, ever since The Force Awakens came out, of this notion that for anybody to be anybody, they've got to be somebody's kid.
Yeah.
And I've never bought into that. You know what I mean? It's just like the kid at the end of The Last Jedi with the little broom, right? I saw so many theories of, he's going to be a central character now in the last movie. It's like, no, to me, what that symbolized at the end of the last movie was just the Force is doing what it has always done. It's bringing balance to the galaxy. It's manifesting itself in certain individuals and children as they're born. And there you go. There's one of them. An example that the Force is still doing what the Force has always done. It's been reawakened. But we tend to look a lot more into things. And look, I'm not going to fall out of my chair in total shock and surprise if, Force Ghost Ewan McGregor pops up in front of Rey and says, "Rey, your mother was my love child, and I am your grandfather." I mean, I'll go, well, that's lame, but I'm not going to fall out of my chair in total and utter shock and surprise. But it's just, I feel like they have made it very clear from day one that she is a product of the Force, just like thousands of generations of Jedi before her. But I don't know. I think there's still a lot of people that are going to be very upset if they don't come out and say, "You are Princess Vespa of,
Dark Helmet's her dad."
Yeah. I mean, unless they say she's like kind of related to somebody, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are upset.
I don't understand that at all. Why does everything have to be a Dickensian-esque story? Why does everyone have to be connected? It makes everyone so much less interesting. If you are an individual who has risen up from adversity and has something special about you just for this because you exist, that's so much more interesting than, well, my parents were also really, really cool and they were important in this other trilogy, so here I am.
Love that literary reference, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It's very
done.
Literary
well done.
reference followed by a Missy from Big Mouth impersonation. I don't know where I went there, but
But hey, look, that's not to say that if they do go in a totally different direction than what I think they're doing, that's not to say there aren't ways to do that and do it well. It's not to say that there aren't ways to say, "You are Palpatine's grandchild."
Yeah.
I mean, I think on the surface, I think that's silly, but we've seen a lot of cool things in movies, right? That we would think in theory would be silly, but then we see it play out and stuff. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of possibilities here. Guys, I want to know what you think. You hear these words by Chris Terrio. Do you think it's pointing to that we're going to get more into the literal physical heritage of Rey, or is it, as he kind of alluded to, is it going to be more of a spiritually, who is she inside? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.